Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for the learning of Torah Hashem Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As we broadcast here tonight from my shul, Agudas Yisrael Beis Zev of Fairways Lakewood, we welcome you first with tremendous Hakar Satayv to TorahAnytime.com for giving us such a magnificent platform for this year, to Chazak for publicizing the share, and to all of you for coming and making it possible. We have very special sponsors tonight, my long-term subscribers, Dr. Matthew and Barbara Guy, Dr. Reuben and Beth Guy. Reuben and Beth are celebrating this Shabbos the bar mitzvah of their son, Binyamin Zev, Benji. You should grow up to be a Talmid Chacham, a Yoreh Shemayim, should have good friends, you should have happiness and Hatzlacha in Ruchnius and in Gashmias. We also want to have in mind for Hatzlacha for Rafal Yaakov ben Yocheved Chaya of Hatzlacha in Ruchnius and in Gashmias. And we learned the Refuah Shalema for Mordechai Tzvi ben Sarah Rachel should have a Refuah Shalema b'Seich Shachar Yisrael. We do not have a sponsor for next week. Somebody wants to come forward and sponsor out there for my listeners, viewers, 718-916-3100, 718-916-3100. You could text or you could call, or RMMWSI, Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss, Staten Island, RMMWSI at AOL.com. The parasha tells us, Vayetze ha'echad me'iti, one of them left me, Va'omar ach tarof toref, and he says that he was torn asunder, V'lo re'isiv adheina, and I haven't seen him until now. The Chassam Sofer, Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha Zchus Yagen Aleinu, has two completely different insights into this pasuk. The first is a very novel pshat from the Chassam Sofer. He says that V'lo re'isiv adheina is Yaakov's proof that Yosef was not dead. Now, Yaakov had many reasons to believe that Yosef was not dead. First of all, it says, V'aviv shamar es hadavar. He waited for the fulfillment of the dreams. He understood that Yosef HaTzadik's dreams were not simple dreams, but rather they were prophecy. And that's why he didn't chide Yosef for saying them and making the brothers jealous, because he knew that it was begeder kovesh nevuasai, withholding a prophecy. He just said, how could your mother bow down to you? She's not alive anymore, only to try to dispel the jealousy of his other children. But he was looking forward to that. Secondly, he saw that his avelus, his mourning, did not stop. And we know that a mace is nishtakech min alev. After a year, there's a certain amount of forgetfulness, which Yaakov did not experience, and that was also a sign to him that Yosef was alive. But here the Chassam Sofer says, we provided another feeling of Yaakov, and that is, V'lo re'isiv adheina, I have not been visited by Yosef in a dream. And the fact that Yosef didn't visit me in a dream is proof positive to me that he's still alive. Otherwise, he would have certainly came to me already in a dream. So therefore, what happened? So therefore, it says the Chassam Sofer, Yaakov thought that Yosef was bitten by a bardalus. There's a medrash to this effect, that Yaakov thought that Yosef was bitten by a bardalus. The bardalus is translated by the Aruch as some kind of a toxic leopard that gave a type of insanity to the person, a tiruf hadas. And therefore, Yaakov surmised that Yosef is wandering around somewhere, not knowing to return. Ach tarof taraf, he was had some kind of a tirfus hadas, some kind of a scrambling of his mind, that he's not returning home. That's one way that the Chassam Sofer learns this. However, the Chassam Sofer has a whole other explanation, which it's very important to talk about this because it unleashes an extremely fundamental life concept. The Chassam Sofer says that when it says "Vayetze ha'echad me'iti," it means that the achdus left for me. The achdus left for my family. With the jealousy that occurred, the achdus, the unification of the family, the shalom of the family departed. And the result of that is achtaruf taref. The Chassam Sofer says, "Hatrifeni lechem chuki," is tirfa is one's sustenance, one's livelihood. With the loss of achdus, that caused the sustenance to be scrambled, and that's why Yaakov felt the resulting famine and having to go down to Mitzrayim eventually, even though they still had stuff, was a result of the lack of achdus. And on this, the Chassam Sofer says the famous mimer, which is a really scary one. We know that in the mimer Chazal that says litzanis achas doicha meya teichachas, that one litzanis could smash and dissolve 100 rebukes. And that's the way it is, you know. Rav could say a real heart warming or really heart inspiring shmooze, and then one wise guy could get up afterwards and say, it's a canned speech, I heard it from him 3 years ago. And that could dispel the whole effect of the shmooze. The whole effect. So that's l'tzanis achas doicha meya teichachas. In that same mimer, it says machloikis achas doicha meya parnassus. That one machloikis can ruin and wreck and push away 100 parnassus. That's like machloikis. Besides being chelik mavis, a portion of death, machloikis chases away the shechina, and it affects people's livelihoods. Now, it's interesting that the Chassam Sofer applies to it a pasuk that the Gemara teaches this pasuk in the reverse. But the Chassam Sofer brings as proof the pasuk that we say in our davening, Hasam gevulei shalom chelev chitim yazbiech. So he learns the pasuk that if there's bigvulei shalom, if there's in your borders peace, then chelev chitim yazbiech, then you'll be satisfied with food in the cupboard. The cream of the crop will be available to you in the event, only in the event that there is shalom. And it's interesting that Rav Label Katz, in his Sefer Oyel Aryeh, wants to apply also this to what we say in our davening, B'Sefer Chayim Bracha V'Shalom. If we're inscribed in the book of Shalom, then the result will be Ufarnasa Taiva. Because when there's Shalom, then there will be Parnasa Taiva. I've seen, and it's one of the great tragedies that I've seen as a Rav, I've seen families where there wasn't a clear tzava, and the family was ripped asunder by arguing over the Yerusha. And what occurred eventually is that both sides got lawyers, and at the end of the day, I saw this mamish, there was a Yerusha of $700,000, which would have been divided very nicely by 3 of the children. None of the money was left. It was taken by all the warring lawyers. They were left with nothing. Now, it's interesting, what do people that see it say? Oh, the lawyers are barracudas. And they blame it on the lawyers. The truth of the matter is that there is some blame to the lawyers, because what the lawyers do is is they say, no, you shouldn't settle for that. No, you shouldn't settle for that. And by the time that they come to anything, there's nothing left. But the real problem is that when there's machlokes in the family, the parnasa goes away. That's the equation. Machlokes achas doicha me'er parnasas. You know, I always said, when I was a Rav in Staten Island, I always said that the mission statement of my shul is shalom. That's why I made on the theme of our paroiches over here, if you look at the theme, the idea of putting the chayshin with all the names of the shvatim, and having over here the Rambam's statement in Hilchos Chanukah, Shekol HaTorah Kula Nitna Lasa Shalom Ba'olam, that's the mission statement of a shul, because if there's shalom, then there's going to be shchina, and there's going to be Hasharas HaShchina, and there's going to be parnasa. But now, I have to tell you that the Gemara darshans this pasuk the other way around. The Gemara says, when the cookie jar is empty, the Gemara says, when the jar is knocking and there's nothing in it, so then there's going to be problems in shalom in the house. And that's what they say, that if is chaylev chitim yazbiech, if there's food in the cupboard, then hasam gevulech shalom. Then there'll be in your borders peace. When there's problems with parnasa, that's when things are tense in the home, and it tends to be shalom bayis problems. And that's the simple pshat that I saw this b'shem Rav Elia Shvei, that he learns that we should be written in the Sefer Chaim Bracha V'Shalom of Parnasa Taiva, because if there's Parnasa Taiva, then there's going to be Shalom. The other way around. And they're both true. And also, this is pshat, and this is very important to know this, it says in Pirkei Avos, Mar b'tzedakah, mar b'shalom. Now, we're used to hearing that tzedakah tatzam amavis and aser b'shvil shetisasha, that it brings wealth. The benefit that if you give tzedakah, it promises that you will have that great blessing of peace. Where does that come from all of a sudden? Mar b'tzedakah, mar b'shalom. It's unique, but that's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The answer is because if you give tzedakah, you're gifting the family that you give tzedakah to with shalom. You're giving them, you're taking away their tension, you're taking away their pressure. You know, families that they could have a cleaning lady. Okay, so if there's a cleaning lady, then it takes a lot of stress away from the family. Families that can't afford it, they can't afford some help, they can't afford to buy takeout when there's no time to make a meal. All of these things put big stress. And when people give tzedakah, and they alleviate this stress, they make peace, and that's why it's a reward. Mar b'tzedakah, mar b'shalom. I've also said my own homemade pshat, which I when I daven, it's a really powerful tefillah to me, and I think it's a very important tefillah. When we say b'sefer Chaim Bracha V'Shalom of Parnasa Tova, I'll tell you what I always have in mind. I say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I don't want to advance myself by other people dying. I don't want to, some people, they say, I got a Yerusha, I was able to do this, I was able to do that. I don't want to be comfortable with Yerushas. Let everybody live. So therefore, I first ask, B'sefer Chaim Bracha V'Shalom. And then give me Parnasa Tova. You can give me Parnasa Tova different ways. And I don't need somebody to die. I don't want somebody to die. B'sefer Chaim Bracha V'Shalom. Or Parnasa Tova. Don't look for somebody, they're getting old, let them die, and I'll be able to use their money. No, Chas V'Shalom. It should never enter such a thought in a person's mind. That's why we reinforce it. B'sefer Chaim Bracha V'Shalom Parnasa Tova. There's another thing that's interesting over here. They say that somebody went in to the Chazaynish for a bracha. Chazaynish, the Tzav Kesh Bracha, Schus Yagan Aleinu, the Gadol Adar, the Pesach Adar. In his day, it was like Chazaynish. They say, Rabbi Twersky recently passed away, and he was once interviewed by an interviewer. He writes this in one of his incredible books, is Gevura. When he turned 80, he wrote a book called Gevura. That's a Gevuras. And he said he was interviewed by a reporter, and he asked him, what's his biggest regret in life? I couldn't believe his answer. It shows what a good life he had, that this was considered his biggest regret in life. He says his biggest regret in life is that he was already in his 20s when the Chazon Ish passed away and he never met him. That was his biggest regret in life. It's a pretty good life, if you could say that's your biggest regret in life. I have a very big regret that I could have met the Satmar Rebbe, and I could have met the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I never did. But I was always around Rav Moshe, so I needed an excuse to leave. So I did have the schia to meet many times Reb Shlomo Mebabiv and Shefa Chaim, the Kozmiger Rebbe, and I did meet in my lifetime the Rav Shach, and I did meet Reb Hershel Spinker, but I never met the Satmar Rebbe. I could have met him. I could have gone for Hoshana Rabbah. I regret that. I regret also I never met the Lubavitcher Rebbe. But anyway, the Chazon Ish, someone went over to the Chazon Ish, asked him for a bracha, and he gave him a bracha for Parnasa. So the man was a little taken aback. He asked, a gadol, and he gave him a bracha for Gashmias. He said, for Parnasa? So the Chazon Ish answered him, is it any different than what the Kohen Gadol prayed? We just learned in the Masechtas Tanis. What the Kohen Gadol prayed for on Yom HaKodesh in the Bayis HaChitzon, in the Kodesh on the holiest day of the year, arguably one of the holiest people on Klal Yisrael. There's different nischayos. We have that it should be a Shana, Shchuna, Geshuma, or Talula. But there's also when the Chazon Ish said it, he quoted the nusach that it should be a year. Yotzin Shetei Shnas Dogan Tireish V'Yitzar Shnas Lachmeinu Umeimenu Tevarech. So it's a bracha parnasa. But what is the deeper meaning? I believe the Chazon Ish was giving him the bracha of Shalom. That's a great bracha. That bracha comes through parnasa. That's a great bracha. There's no klei magzik bracha ela Shalom. If you think about it, that's the same thing in Birchas Kahanim. Yivarechecha Hashem, what does Rashi say? B'mamai. And then v'yishmerecha, because mammon could bring a lot of problems. Mammon could bring, when a person has mammon, then they don't need to ask for anything from Hashem. That's the vayishman yeshurun vayivat. When a person doesn't have money, then Hashem. Person has money, they don't need Hashem. So Yivarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha. But only at the end of that is Yisa Hashem panav yelecha v'yasem l'cha shalom. Only then you have shalom. It also explains. They ask a big when you're learning. When we learned by Rav Moshe, in the yeshivish cycle was Masechtas Shabbos. So when you learn Masechtas Shabbos, so there's always certain times where we're makel in halacha in a case of hefsid meruba. And the Chavetz Chaim says, what, money changes halacha? Famous kasha the Chavetz Chaim asks, so because of money you're allowed to do it? I mean, you're not allowed to do it, but because of money you're allowed to do it. Money changes the halacha. So the Chavetz Chaim says, it's not money. It's Torah. Because money is Torah. If you have money, so you can learn more. So yeah, Torah changes halacha. That's the famous teretz of the Chavetz Chaim, and this is consistent with the Chavetz Chaim. Chavetz Chaim once went into a relative's house. In Radin, it wasn't a minhag to have curtains. People didn't have curtains. And he went into a relative's house and he saw curtains. He said, I see dafim of Gemara hanging from the window. Because it took time away from Gemara to buy those curtains. So he equated money with Torah. But now we see something else. Money is shalom. There could be a change in Avsim Meruba because of shalom. Shalom is the very essence of the entire Torah. It's the lifeblood of the Jewish family. Okay. So we're going to go from one important subject to another very important subject. Very, very important. V'ata, Yosef told them, Al te'atzvu. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. So Rabbi Isai, I saw brought down, I might have made a fleeting reference to this in the Gemara Shir, but I saw it brought down b'shem the Birchas Shmuel. Anybody that's in yeshiva, if you want to know if you really understand a good piece of lumdus, you learn a Birchas Shmuel from Rabbi Ber. So they say over that the Birchas Shmuel said that I don't know whether I'm going to get big Olam Haba for my learning. Maybe I learned wrong pshat. I'm obviously going to get schar for learning even if it is the wrong pshat. But I guess he meant a full Olam Haba. Maybe I said wrong pshat. But listen to what he said. He said, for this I know that I'm going to get Olam Haba. When I walk in the shuk and I see people looking downcast or full of worry, I pray to Hashem that they should have atzlacha and they should cheer up and their worries should be dispelled. He says, for that, I'm certainly going to get Olam Haba. So there's so many novelties over here, you can't begin to say. The first thing is, he didn't say for going and cheering them up. He didn't have time to cheer up everybody in the street. You cheer up somebody, you have to get to know them, you have to, he was a Rosh Hashiva. He's busy making the Birchas Shmuel. He said, but I davened for them. I davened, and where did he daven? There's many places where you could daven for a person that they should cheer up. The first place is in Atachayne. Because a lot of people are depressed because they're not utilizing their das. They're worried about things that they shouldn't be worried about. You have people that they're 20 years old, they're worrying about how they're going to be able to retire. Worry about it. They don't even know if they're going to be alive to retire. What are you worrying about? What are you like Ben Sira says, what are you worrying about a world that might not be yours? And so the first thing is you pray for people in Atachayim. That's the first thing. Now we see that a lot of people are unhappy because they're on money. So you can pray for them in Baruch Aleinu. Then you could certainly pray and even add it in Shema Kaleinu. And then you could pray like Rav Miller said in Sim Shalom, for peace of mind. Shalom Rav, abundant peace of mind. So there's at least 4 places where you can pray for people. That's a big chiddush that he's saying. The second chiddush is, this is also a very big chiddush. You want to say Olam Haba, you would expect that I helped people. I gave people sustenance. I gave tzedakah. You have to know that cheering people up and giving them a good mental state is more than giving them sustenance. That Yesoid is repeated over and over again in the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan said, Gadol, greater is a person who shows the teeth of his face. That means he smiles better than giving him milk. You know, remember all those days where they gave school children milk, right? The milk bottles for the school children, the wax bottles, you know, that they should have milk. It says, Leven shinayim mecholav. Al tikar leven shinayim ela levain shinayim mecholav. Showing the white of the teeth, smiling at people, and putting people in a good mood is more important than milk. By the way, this is from Rabbi Yochanan. I always thought, the Gemara at the end of Ksuvas, I always thought that the Maimer came from Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan could have had a good excuse to be downcast. Rabbi Yochanan went around, Dein Garma Dasi Rabir. This is the bone of my 10th son that I buried. Yeah, but he wasn't. He was upbeat. Because it's more important that a person, this is for parents, parents, they say, look, I fed my children. Yeah, you fed your children, but you put such pressure on them to get 100 that they couldn't stand it anymore. They were pressure cookers, or you were so rigid in the home, or everybody was downcast. It's better. It's more important to give them a cheery environment and a smile than giving them milk. It's more important. It's an amazing statement. That's a Beferish Gemara. Or what about the Maimer Chazal in Bava Basra? It's the same idea. It says that if you give money to an ani, you're blessed with 6 brachas. But I'm a faisai b'dvarim, if you appease him with words, mizbarach b'yud aleph brachas, with 11 brachas. We see what it means to put people in a better mental state. I always said that when we daven and make a mishaberach, we always say refuas hanefesh before refuas haguf. That's why it's such a fallacy in the way they teach in secular medical college today. They tell the doctors that you have to disclose full disclosure of the patient's medical diagnosis. Now this could be ritzicha. You tell a person that they have pancreatic cancer, you could kill them. Tell a person, well, you have 6 weeks to live. It's ritzicha. First of all, Ramesha would always say that only nitein rishus l'roifei l'rafos. There's only permission to a doctor to cure. The doctor has no permission to render sentences. They don't. Ramesha told me, I heard this directly from Ramesha. Rishus was only given to the doctor to heal, not to tell people ultimatums. But look, certain people want to know, they want to be able to prepare. You have to know the person. That's part of Bikur Chayla, part of examining the Chayla. But the Refuas HaNefesh, the state of mind of the Chayla, I will tell you that when I was with my first Rebbetzin, and I should mention, although it's not yet, but her yahrzeit is this week, her 4th yahrzeit, Maras Miriam Liba Bas Reb Aaron, and Neshama should have a lichtige Gan Eden. She should be a militzas yosher for our family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. When I was with her, she on her matzeva, amongst the many things that are said on her matzeva, without 1 ounce of guzma, on her matzeva is written that she was mekayim v'chai bohem b'chol ma'oida. She took 32 chemos. Each, we're not talking about a pill. We're talking about 7-hour drips. 32 of them. She lived for 2.5 years with pancreatic cancer, only through tremendous heroic measures. But I watched in the chemo lab many people die. I took her, I was by every single one of her chemos the entire time. And I watched many people die. They give up. Once they gave up, they died very quickly. So giving people a smile. Now we just learned it in Masechtas Tanis. Rabbi Isai, this is such an important part of life. We learned that Rabbi Broka Chayzah met Eliyahu b'Shukah Debei left. Rabbi Broka Chayzah met Eliyahu in the teeming mall of Left. And he asked him, is there any Ben Olam Haba? And at first he said, no, there isn't. There isn't. And then he spotted 2 people. First he spotted a jailer, and then he spotted 2 people. And he said, they're Bnei Olam Haba. And Rabbi Broka ran after them. What do you do? And they said, we're clowns, jesters. And we're badchei atzive. We make happy people that are sad. That's the stuff that Olam Haba is made out of. Now, everybody can do this with their own wife or husband. Every wife is going to be asked by Hashem, were you an Ezer Kenegdai? And she's going to say, well, exactly what do you mean by that, Hashem? He said, one thing I certainly mean. When he was gloomy, sad, did you know how to make him happy? Did you try to make him happy? That's a role of a wife. It's a role of a husband too. The Torah says, "V'simach es ishtay." This is a very big part of marriage, and this is a way to be kaina olam haba. And a person has to know this is part of the art of being a good spouse. The art of being a good spouse is to, first of all, recognize when your spouse is down. Some spouses don't even get to first base. They don't even know. They don't even know. They don't stop to talk. They don't stop to notice. I got my own problems. You have to know if your spouse is downcast. You have to realize it. And you have to know from experience what they need as pick-me-ups. Sometimes it's food. Sometimes it's a vacation. Sometimes it's a distraction. We also know today, when my first shviger, Maras Devora Bas Rabbi Leib, my first Rebbitzon's mother, who was Rav Henkin's personal secretary. It's interesting, when my first Rebbitzon lived in Rav Moshe's building on FDR Drive, and the Alter Rebbitzon Zimmer, when we came to wish a Mazel Tov, she said, I should have made the shidduch, because I used to be Meshamish Rav Moshe, and my Rebbitzon used to do shopping for the Rebbitzon. And my Rebbitzon's mother, who was an Isha Chashuva Ad Ma'od, she used to bring messages back and forth from Rav Henkin to Rav Moshe. She lived in Rav Moshe's building. When she passed away, they were maspid her that the world lost one of the last great listeners. People don't have time to listen anymore. Daga belevish yasichen al acherim. Somebody has a worry, tell it over to somebody else. There's a tremendous, tremendous alleviation. That's what Birchas Shmuel says. I prayed that their worries should be diffused. You have to give somebody a listening ear. It's the stuff that Olam Haba is made out of. People don't have time. They don't have time. It's a big thing to give somebody a listening ear. I remember that I was, after I became a widower, Rachmana litzlan, lo yaleinu, so the nights were very hard. Nights were especially, during the day you're busy, but the night all of a sudden you're alone. It was very hard. And I had my mother's cousin was an older woman living in Petach Tikva. And she said to me, you know, I'm up in the middle of the night. I'm in Eretz Yisrael. If you need to talk, call me. And I took her up on it. It was a huge chesed. Huge chesed just to be able to talk. How I couldn't believe what happened. My first Rebbitzon was only 54 years old. But Daga b'levish yasichenu la'acherim. You do that. That's the stuff that Olam Haba is made out of. It's a big thing to realize. Got carried away, but this is a very important point. V'lo yachol Yosef lis'apek l'chol hanitzavim alav. He wasn't able. Now here Rashi learns this. He wasn't able to withstand that the brothers should be embarrassed to all those that were standing there. Vayikra hoitziyu kol ish me'alai. Send everybody out. Called out, send them out. So what did he do? He sent out his secret servicemen. He sent out his palace guards. He sent out his page, his jesters. Says the Tanchuma, at that time, Yosef HaTzadik put himself into grave sakana. Because the Shvatim, especially Yehuda, but also Shimon and Levi, all the Shvatim, they could have killed him, and no one would have known. No one would have ever known that it was Yosef. They could have killed him there. Afraid of what Yaakov would do with them, they could have killed him. But Yosef said, it's worth it, walking in the footsteps of Tamar. It's worth going in the fire than embarrassing my brothers. Now, these are the brothers who caused him decades of shame. First of all, they took his clothes off and lowered him in a pit. Then they sold him, probably half naked, as a slave. To have decades of the shame of a slave and then to be a prisoner in a pit for 12 years. And these people that generated all this shame, he was willing to risk his life not to cause them shame. It's a remarkable thing. Now, in this, they say that Yosef got this genetically. It was mushrish in him from his mother, because Rachel was willing to give up being married to the Bechir Sheba Avos to be the aim of Klal Yisrael in order not to embarrass her sister Leah. So it was in him, this trait of not to be Mevayish. And we should add that it was embedded in his name. We say that a person's essence is in their name. Yosef was called Yosef because Asaf Elikim es Cherpasi. That Yosef caused that she shouldn't have shame, that people shouldn't say she was the trophy wife who was there just for her beauty and not to have children. And now if anything is broken in the house, it removed her shame because Yosef did it. Right? So that means that his mohus was that he was willing, most people, if you ask most people, what was the biggest heroic act in Chumash Bereshis? Most people will say Akedas Yitzchak. If they know more, they'll say Tamar, who was ready to be burned together with her 2 unborn children. And it's brought down in the Medrash that she knew that her unborn children were the harbingers of the Geula. She would pat her stomach and say, be Malchus and be Geula. She was ready to give that up in order not to embarrass Yehuda. If he would admit. If not, she would go to her death burnt. Some say Mamish actually burnt, not even a Psil Shalaver, actually burnt, because she was a Bas Kayin, and that's what they did in those days, the daughter of Shem. Lamaisa is the trait of not being Mevayish. There's a Maisa. To my subscribers, I want to apologize because I know I mentioned this Maisa before. But it's such an amazing Maisa that I want to mention it for the many people that are viewing and are listening and are zooming that haven't heard it before. The Rebbe Reb Herschel, when he was a young man, this is a true story. The Rebbe Reb Herschel got engaged, and they came to the town for the Ofruf. The Chasana was supposed to be on Sunday. And they put up the Chassan. It was a nice day. The Kala was in the kitchen, a different house, preparing for Shabbos. She made a kugel, and she put it on the windowsill to cool off before putting it away. And it happens to be that Reb Herschel was learning next to the window. And he saw that a chicken smelled the kugel, a live chicken smelled the kugel, and came and hopped on the kugel and started pecking at it. And here it is for, the chassan's here for Shabbos, and the chicken just ruined the kugel. The Kala came and saw it. She grabbed the chicken by the feet and in an anger slammed the chicken's head against the outside wall and killed her. And the Reb Herschel saw this. And he said, there's no way I could marry such a woman. No way I can marry such a woman. She says, this is what she's doing to the chicken now. One day she's going to grab me by the feet and slam me against the wall. He says, I can't marry such a woman. On the other hand, he says, it's the day before the chasana. I can't be mavaza. That's even worse. So what did he do? He went into the Beis Medrash before Mincha, took a hammer, and made it as if nobody saw, and started slamming open the pushka, and emptying the pusher and putting it in his pocket. People said, who's this guy? Oh, that's the Chassan. They ran to the parents and said, you know, you're Chassan. You don't have to worry about Parnasa. If he needs something, he knows where to go. The shul's pushka. They told the Kala. The Kala said, no, I don't want to marry a Ganev. They broke the shidduch. Meantime, the Rebbe Reb Herschel's father, who was a great man, said, Reb Herschel, what are you doing? What possessed you? So he had to tell his father the story. He says, I can't be Mavaza, Abbas Yisrael, but on the other hand, I can't marry her. So I'd rather bring the busha on me, and that's what he did. But that's the way busha by Klal Yisrael was always something. You know, the Sefer L'Sitcha Elyon, I didn't even write this down in my notes, but I'll tell you, the Sefer L'Sitcha Elyon says, and I have to say, I really have to say, that my Rebbitzin said, cancel the shir. This shir goes on Torah. Anytime that I come and says, do it tomorrow. You're not feeling well. I really was schlepping along. I wasn't feeling well. I said to her, B'li ayin hara, I never canceled my Tuesday night shir. It was Tuesday, used to be Tuesday night. All the years, I never did it. The only time I pushed off and I made signs is for my own children's weddings, if I had to. I tried not to make my children's weddings on a Tuesday night either, but I had to do it one time. So, but otherwise, I never canceled the shir. I said, I don't want to cancel the shir. And Mamash Rebbeinu Shalom is giving me the koyach that I should be able to give the shir. It's the schus of the olam. But anyway, the Sefer L'Sitcha Elyon brings down from, I believe it's from Rav Zaydel Epstein, that it says that the brothers couldn't speak ki nivhalu mipanav. Now the Pashib shot ki nivhalu mipanav is they were afraid. They're afraid of Nakama. Here he is. They lowered him into a pit of snakes and scorpions. He begged and they didn't listen to his heeds of mercy. Then they sold him to perpetual slavery. Later on, when Yaakov passed away, Bilhah had to fabricate because they were worried that Yosef would take avenge from them. And here, Rashi doesn't learn Kinavalu Mipanav that they were afraid. Rashi says they couldn't speak because of Busha. So they want to learn, the Baalei Mussar want to learn that the emotion of Busha is even more powerful than fear. And we know Busha, Hamal ben Pnei Chaver Baram, habitually, the Miri says, Ein l'chelik l'olam haba. That's not the case with murder. Busha, we always pray, Shalei Neva, Shalei Neva, Shalei Nikalim, Shalei Nikashem. We always pray. Busha is the most horrific of things. We know that in the same way, Moshe Rabbeinu, when Hashem said Moshe Rabbeinu was given the biggest Hatzalah call in the history of mankind to save the Jews from Egypt. It was the biggest 911, the biggest EV7 1700, the biggest Hatzalah call in the history of mankind. What is it, 230-1000? The biggest Hatzalah call in the history of mankind was Moshe Rabbeinu. And he said no for 7 days. Imagine, the Yidden was suffering in Egypt and Moshe Rabbeinu was arguing, no. Why? Because Aaron, his older brother, he would have to take his place. And that would be an embarrassment. Aaron was above it. But Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm going to embarrass him. I think they say over from Rav Chatzkel, it's either from Rav Chatzkel or Rabbi Yerucham, that it could be even the binyan Beis Hamikdash, but if it's going to cause somebody's busha, don't be buying the Beis Hamikdash. Busha is... I'll tell you one more story. This I never said. I don't think so. You know, one of the great personalities of the last generation, one of the great, I mean, I don't think we could grasp such a personality, was Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin. Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin was, you know, he was the Isha Eshkel. He was not only, I told you once that he had a talent, that he was able to open up a Simon Sefer, you know, one of the Simonim Sefer was Sugya Sefer, and he read Simon Aleph, and he was able to tell the Bachrim what the Mechaber would say on each Sugya. He was able to say, he had such a ga'inus that he was able to understand from the style of the Mechaber what he would say in each sugya. They say over that he came to one sugya and he wasn't sure, so he gave a few coins to tzedakah and then he figured it out. But he was a guy in Atzah. But he was also, I mean, we know the Diskin orphan home. He was also a man of great tzedakah and giving. So they say this story over. He had something with his sugar. Because he had with his sugar when he did the effort of giving a shear, they always prepared him a tea with sugar cubes. And what happened is by mistake, they left the salt container. And they gave him salt cubes instead of sugar cubes. And the Rebbetzin was worried it was a sakana. But he was sitting by the shear and he was taking it like nothing. And afterwards they asked him how that was possible. And he said, what, I should be Vayigash my shamish? That wasn't even a havamina, that I should be Vayigash my shamish. This is the way people, I mean, you know, it's the stuff of legends. But it shows us what it means to embarrass another person. It's not. Now, of course, when it says "V'lo yachol Yosef lisapak l'chol hanitzavim alav, v'yikru hoitziu kol ish me'alai," there's another pshat why Yosef sent everybody out. And Rav Miller says this pshat. Other people say it also, but Rav Miller asks, "What's so special about Kol Nidrei night? That Kol Nidrei night, it's such a Kol Nidrei v'Yasorei v'Kinuyei v'Koinamei." We don't say Asur Alai. We don't make Koinamais. We don't make Shvuas. So Rav Miller said that everybody is Meichel everybody else. It was the practice before Kol Nidrei. Will you be Meichel me? Will you be Meichel me? When there's Achdus, there's Hashras Hashchina. And that Hashras Hashchina is not supposed to be enjoyed by Goyim. And that's why he said, Hoitziu Kol Ish Me'alai. There'll be a moment now where the Shvatim will be now Meyached again, and they'll realize that everything was from Hashem, and that Yosef is not usurping what they thought about before. And the family Achdus will be restored, and there'll be Ashras Hashchina. At that point, the Goyim should leave. It's one of the reasons why the minig is not to have a Goy in a sukkah if possible. So it's brought down that the sukkah has the Kedushas HaChil. And that's why the Yevonim made a breach in the Chil, because the Goyim were not allowed to enter beyond in that area. And the Sukkah has Kedushas HaChil. That's why we try, if a neighbor wants to see a sukkah, we try to bring them in before sukkahs or after sukkahs. So if somebody has an aid, they can't help it. But if you can, you avoid. But the deeper meaning is because it's a frois aleinu sukkah shleimecha. When there's shalom and achdus, there's ashras hashchina. When there's ashras hashchina, it's not supposed to be goyim. The Medrash says, "V'lo yachal Yosef lis'apek." The Medrash says that Binyamin told Yosef, "I want you to know that our father, as long as Yosef was missing, he didn't sleep on a bed. He slept on the floor." And he said, all the Shvatim had a partner, I didn't have a partner, I was alone. And when Yosef heard that, he couldn't contain himself. It's a medrash. It's a medrash. Rav Baron, who was the mashkiach in Ponevezh in Lita, said that Pshat and V'lo Yachal Yosef, this is like a real Baal Musa Pshat. V'lo Yachal Yosef Lis'apik means that Yosef kept the charade in order that the Shvatim should do tshuva, in order that the Shvatim should fulfill the dreams, but he was always checking himself that there shouldn't be an ounce, a microscopic shred of nekama. Says Reb Baron, "V'lo yachal Yosef l'sapik." He reached a point where there might be a little nekama, then he knew he couldn't do it anymore. That's the way Reb Baron learned. Now, Lamaisa there's a pshat over here that the Reb Level Katz brings down in his Moridika Oyel Aryeh. Level Katz tells a story about two partners that dissolved the Yerusha, their shutfas. And in the dissolving of the shutfas, there was one field that had to be sold. So one shutf told the other shutf, you take care of dissolving the field, and I'll give you an agent's fee, and we'll split it. So he went and he got really good money for the field, and it bothered him. He had to give half of it away. So, greed is a big thing. He decided, he took a stick, and he hit himself and beat himself. And he concocted the story that he was jumped on, and they stole the money. The partner didn't believe him. I guess there was a reason why they were breaking the partnership. And they went to the Rav. So Rav listened to the story, and he told the man, "You're a ganev, give him back half of the money, or I'm taking you to the police." So the partner looked at the Rav and said, I confess. I greed got the better of me. But how did the Rav know? So he said, as a Rav, one of the talents of a Rav is to be empathetic, to feel people's pain. I'm talking to you and I don't feel the pain of you losing the money for the field. That's a lot of money. I didn't feel any pain. I knew you're lying. Amazing thing. So he said, that's pshat, v'lo yachal Yosef l'sapik. The whole time when he was dealing with the brothers, he didn't feel in them a regret. Now when Yehuda was talking to him, he felt a regret for what they did. And that's when Yosef couldn't hold himself back anymore, because now he felt the regret. Now, for the final subject of the evening, can't believe it's already 54 minutes. I can't believe it. And again, I want to thank everybody viewing on TorahAnytime.com, Carl Lushin, our Zoomers, those that have graced us here in the shul. Next week, we're trying a new venue for this share. We're going to be in Morty's Shtibel. It's a Shtibel in Jackson, on 15 Dawson Trail, I think.
Delaware Trail.
15 Delaware Trail. 15 Delaware Trail at 9:15. We're going to try that. They say that they want to supply us with some people. I hope at least for the first share people will join us so we can kick it off with Atzlacha. And if anybody wants to sponsor next week's share, 718-916-3100. Please call me early in the week, rmmwsi@aol.com. Also, very important, big event next week. Tuesday night, we start Masechtas Megillah. Masechtas Megillah is another, again, the Masechta Month Club. As I told you, we finish Masechta in a month, Megillah also. And it's such an exciting, we're heading towards Purim now. It's a leap year, it's a long time. But no better preparation for Purim than to learn Masechtas Megillah. It's an amazing, so come and join us. Tuesday night, you don't have to make a big commitment. Just come for a month. You try it, you like it. Here, if you live here in Fairways, please join us Tuesday night at 8 o'clock for the start of Masechtas Megillah with the second Ma'ariv at 7:45. If you're listening or watching and you want to join our Zoom family, please believe me when I tell you that we have this wonderful Zoom family. You could go to Zoom, it's 8 o'clock on Motzei Shabbos, 8:15. You go to zoom.com and you put in the meeting ID, which is the same number you call to make sponsorship. It's 718-916-3100, 718-916-3100. Yosef HaTzadik passed away 10 years earlier. He was supposed to live till 120, but he passed away at 110. Chazal tell us different reasons why he passed away and he lost the 10 years. One reason it says is that when he was coming with the royal chariots, he should have, this is the Targum Yonasim and Azil's reason, he should have gone in advance and sent advance news to Yaakov that it's Yosef, that Yaakov shouldn't bow down to his son. Now I would imagine that he didn't do this because he wanted the fulfillment of the dream, that the sun and the moon would bow down. But even so, the Targum Yonasim and Azil says that he was faulted for not telling his father ahead of time that it was Yosef to spare him the bowing down to his son. And for that humiliation, Yosef was punished to lose 10 years. The more famous pshat is that he heard the brothers say, Avdecha Avi, 5 times, your servant, my father, 5 times, and he didn't protest with the lashon of Avdecha Avi. Now, why 10 years? Because he heard Avdecha Avi 5 times, and he heard it from the Meturgamim, from the interpreter, another 5 times, so he lost a year for each time he heard Avdecha Avi. Now, from here we see that for an infraction of kibbud of aim and yira, one is not only punished for what they do, but for even not protesting the disgrace of a father or a mother. Now, everybody asked the famous question, but of shemachal al kvaydai machal, and for sure Yaakov was Michael. You have the famous Sefer Chasidim's teretz that even though Yaakov was Michael, but it's also a sin against God. Because kibbud av aim is a mitzvah of bein adam l'makom too, especially since Hashem is the silent partner. But others say that tsar, humiliation, which is tsar, mechila doesn't help. It's for the same reason that they give the same answer when they ask why was Yaakov punished for not being by Yitzchak and Rivka 22 years. They were surely Michael. They want to say Tsar is different. That's why Dama ben Nesina didn't wake up his father. His father would have been definitely Michael. But Tsar, Mechila doesn't help. Now here, this is something which we all need to work on. It's a scary thing. It's a scary thing. You see, Orchis Yosher by Reb Chaim Kanievsky brings down from the Sefer Charedim that there was a man that supported his mother. But he didn't respect his mother. To the contrary, he thought of her disparagingly. She doesn't take care of herself. She's useless. One time they found him dead with ravings pecking out his eyes because of the way he viewed his mother. That's a Sefer Charedim. There's a Gemara in Kedushin that says, Yesh machal aviv fisyayni v'yerish gehenna. And when you learn this as a bach, you don't really appreciate the deep depth of this. Here's a son, he buys pheasant. He does the right thing. Pheasant was the filet mignon. But when he gave it, he gave it with a zug. Okay, listen, you're a good for nothing. And maybe the father was a good for nothing. You can't. I have a family to support and everything. I have to take care of you. It's wrong what you do. But v'yerish gehenna. Rambam says we have to view our parents as nobility. It's not. Sometimes it's not easy. Parents don't deserve it. It's not easy, but it's expected. And it's Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer says the hardest mitzvah in the Torah is kibbud avim. And here Yosef Tzaddik lost 10 years of his life because he heard Avdecha Avi 5 times and 5 times from the interpreter, and he didn't protest. We should all be able to do wonderful kibbud avim. I want to thank you all for joining us. Wish you a good night and a good Shabbos.